In this video, we're just going to cover the concept of layers, which is fairly simple in Illustrator, but at the same time I think requires enough explanation that it's worth taking a few minutes in a video to go over. So over here on the right side, as I pointed out in a previous video, is the layers palette. It's represented by this little icon of two squares standing over one another, and very much so, layers work very literally in Illustrator. So if I just start adding in shapes, which I did a video on the shape tool as well. If I just throw a shape in here, you'll see it automatically appear within the icon of this layer. So what if then I move on and I continue adding these additional pieces onto it with some varied color shapes? You can see I'm stacking them on top of each other, and the ones that I add later are in fact shown at the top of the canvas layer. But they're all still here on layer 1. In fact, if I take this little arrow here and I drop it down, you can see that each of these three ellipses are visible there, and I can toggle them off and on using the eyeball icon. So they're all on the same layer, but at the same time, automatically, they are layered. This can be a little bit confusing. So you have to think of it kind of like folders. When it comes to the thing that is actually labeled layer 1, that's essentially a folder, and then everything I put into it is arranged, and I can actually grab and drag and rearrange these so that they're in a different order, because very literally, again, whatever is on top within the folder hierarchy is on top on the canvas. So if I can click and drag these around, I can also do something like select this gray one, go up to Object, Arrange, and then use Bring to Front to pull it to the front, and you'll see that it adjusts it in the layer structure. Now, the point of this is that Adobe Illustrator automatically layers things, whether you want it to or not. That's just how it works. It puts them in a layer order. You can rearrange that layer order, but the best thing that you can possibly do is just to ensure that you utilize layers in a way that keeps your project organized. So I can create new layers using the sticky note button here at the bottom of this panel, and if I create a layer, it will name it layer 2, layer 3, etc., and I can double click on the name to rename those. So I can call this one squares, and then I can go over to my rectangle tool and I can start throwing in some squares on top of it. However, you'll notice that something just messed up in that process. This is extremely important to take note of. Because I was changing the color, it automatically highlighted the circle that I already had selected, and it altered its color, which automatically moved me back to layer 1. So none of these elements are on layer 2 as I wanted them to be. Whatever layer is highlighted here is the one that's active, and just by clicking, you can accidentally make another one active. For example, if I select the squares layer, but then I go in here and I select this circle, it moves my highlight back down here. This can make some problems. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select this square, hold Shift, select the other one. I'm going to hit Command X, which cuts and removes those. Then I'll go up here to the squares option and then hit Command V to paste them back in. Copying and pasting is a big deal. In Illustrator, you use it a lot. So now you can see that they're on two separate layers, but how do you keep this from happening where you're accidentally moving back and forth between layers? This is where locking becomes extremely useful. So if I'm wanting to work on my squares layer, then I can use this empty space right here next to the visibility icon, and I can lock that entire layer. I can also lock individual ones if I want to work inside of a layer. That allows me to click and work with the squares without worrying about accidentally moving to a different layer. Instead, I can simply work on this one. So the layers palette is incredibly useful for organization. At a basic level, just remember that the hierarchy is literal and that it's very easy to make mistakes, because if you click an item that's on a layer, automatically that layer becomes active. So using your visibility and your lock options will keep that from happening. Just make sure that you have this function, this panel palette, open all the time so that you can see how things are behaving within your canvas.